Hello, she said. If you really loved me, you'd clear my student debt. I replied, let's review the details. When a forensic accountant looked into it, we found the debt had nothing to do with school, and that's where it all ended. For context, I'm Daniel, 31M. She's Lauren, 28F. We've been together a little over 2 years, living together for 8 months. I work in commercial real estate finance. She works in brand partnerships, which mostly seems to involve meetings, emails, and being exhausted without anything tangible to show for it. We were sitting at the kitchen island when she said it. I was reviewing a spreadsheet on my laptop. She was scrolling her phone, legs crossed, sighing dramatically every few seconds until I looked up. If you truly loved me, you'd pay off my student loans. She said it casually, not angry, not emotional. I still owe $92,000, she said. It's suffocating. And honestly, it's starting to affect how I see our future. That was new. I asked what she meant. She rolled her eyes. I don't want to marry someone who watches me drown when they could help. I mean, you do pretty well. That word again. Help. She loved that word when it involved my money. I reminded her, calmly, that we weren't married, that her loans were from before we met, and that $92,000 wasn't exactly pocket change. Her expression hardened immediately. Wow, she said. So money matters more to you than me. There it was. The emotional lever. She pulled it often, usually when she wanted something expensive framed as a moral test. I'm just saying we should talk about it, I replied. We are talking about it, she snapped. And the answer should be yes if you're serious about me. She launched into a rehearsed monologue about partnership, sacrifice, and how men who love their girlfriends step up. She mentioned her friends' boyfriends. She mentioned engagement timelines. She did not mention responsibility. What struck me wasn't the number. It was her certainty. The assumption that my role was to fix something she decided was my problem. I didn't argue. I didn't say no. I said, let's take a closer look at the loans first. She frowned. Why? Because $92,000 is a lot, I said. And if I'm going to consider something that serious, I want to understand what I'm paying for. She hesitated, just for half a second. Fine, she said. But this shouldn't be a big investigation. I nodded. I already knew it would be. The next morning, she sent me a Venmo request. No note, no conversation, just $92,000 with a heart emoji. I stared at it longer than I should have. When I didn't accept it within an hour, she followed up. Did you see it? Yes, I replied. Okay, good. I just don't want this hanging over us anymore. Us. Interesting choice of word for her debt. That night, I asked her to send me the loan details. Statements, lenders, interest rates, normal stuff. The kind of information anyone serious about finances would already have organized. She sighed loudly. Why are you being like this? Like what? Clinical. Cold. It's not romantic. I almost laughed. Nothing says romance like nearly 6 figures of obligation delivered via Venmo. She eventually emailed me a folder. Sloppy. Screenshots instead of statements. PDFs with half the pages missing. Some balances didn't match what she'd told me. One loan showed a different servicer name than she'd mentioned before. Some of these look odd, I said carefully. They're old, she snapped. Stuff gets moved around. That's how student loans work. I nodded, but something itched. I deal with numbers for a living. Debt has patterns, structures, rules. This pile looked improvised. The next red flag came when I asked what degrees the loans were tied to. She said, does it matter? Yes, I replied. A lot. She rolled her eyes. Undergrad. Grad school, living expenses. You know how it is. Except I didn't know how it was. And this wasn't how it was. Later that night, she accused me of stalling, of looking for excuses, of being afraid of commitment. If you wanted to, she said, you would. I didn't argue. I just said, I want clarity. She laughed, not amused. You sound like my dad. That sealed it. The next day, I made a call. Not to a lawyer, not to my bank. To a forensic accountant I'd worked with on a commercial dispute last year. Brilliant, quiet, ruthless with details. I sent him the folder. He replied an hour later with 6 words. This is not student loan debt. And suddenly, the Venmo request made a lot more sense. I didn't confront her right away. That was the first mistake she assumed I'd make. Storm in, accuse, demand explanations. That's how she handled conflict. Loud, emotional, overwhelming. It worked on people who wanted peace more than truth. I wanted truth. The accountant, Evan, asked for permission to dig deeper. Public records, credit reports, transaction histories tied to the lenders listed in her screenshots. Nothing illegal, Nothing she'd ever notice unless she was paying attention. I said yes. That evening, Lauren acted almost sweet. Made dinner. Asked about my day. Mentioned how secure she felt knowing we were finally moving towards solving her debt together. You don't know how much lighter I already feel, she said, sipping wine. I watched her carefully. The confidence. The assumption that the conversation was over. I asked casually, when did you take out the biggest loan again? She didn't miss a beat. Grad school. Second year. Which school? She hesitated. You know, Northeastern. We'd talked about her education dozens of times. She went in Northeastern for undergrad. She never finished grad school. She dropped out after a year. We both knew that. I didn't correct her. I just nodded. That night, Evan emailed again. Not conclusions. Questions. Why were multiple accounts categorized as personal installment debt instead of educational? Why did several balances originate years after she left school? Why were there merchant codes attached to some disbursements? Student loans don't pay merchants directly. I stared at my screen while Lauren slept beside me, phone charging on the nightstand. Designer case. New. She'd bought it last week. Complained about money the same day. The next morning, she was irritated again. Cold. Snappy. Are you still looking into this? She asked. Because it's starting to feel like you don't trust me. I trust numbers, I said. They don't get defensive. She didn't like that. You're overcomplicating this, she snapped. People in love don't audit each other. I smiled faintly. People in love don't lie about debt either. That's when she knew something was slipping. By Friday afternoon, Evan sent the message that changed everything. Daniel, you need to see this in person. So I scheduled a meeting. And I didn't tell her. Evan's office was nothing like I expected. No glass walls. No flashy tech. Just gray carpet, filing cabinets, and the quiet confidence of a man who made his living by finding things people hoped would stay buried. He slid a folder across the table. Before I explain, he said, I need to be clear. What I found is legal debt. Just not what she told you it was. Inside were clean summaries. Timelines. Categories. Everything her screenshots avoided. Out of the $92,000, only $27,400 was tied to actual federal student loans. Legitimate. Boring. Exactly what she claimed everything was. The rest? Personal loans. High-interest installment debt. Balance transfers. Several private lenders that don't even offer education products. And then Evan pointed to a line item highlighted in yellow. This, he said, is where it gets interesting. A six-figure luxury retailer. Not tuition. Not housing. Not books. Recurring charges tied to a defunct LLC she'd once mentioned in passing as a side hustle that didn't work out. The loans were taken out after she left school. Some as recently as 18 months ago. I felt my stomach drop. Not because of the money, but because of the pattern. So what was it? I asked. Evan didn't sugarcoat it. Lifestyle debt. Branding. Travel. Cosmetic procedures. A failed attempt at maintaining an income level that never actually existed. I sat back. All those comments about investing in herself. All the shopping sprees followed by stressed tears about money. All the moral pressure wrapped in romance. He closed the folder. She reframed it as student debt because people feel guilty questioning education. It's socially protected. I thanked him and left with copies. That night, Lauren was waiting for me, arms crossed, energy sharp. So, she said, ready to be supportive now? I set the folder on the table. We need to talk, I said. She smiled tightly. I thought we already were. I opened the folder. No, I said. Now we're getting honest. Her smile vanished. And for the first time since this started, she looked scared. She didn't touch the folder at first. She just stared at it like it might bite her. What is this? She asked, already defensive. Breakdown of the loans, I said. Actual breakdown. She flipped it open, skimmed the first page, then laughed sharply. This is ridiculous. Who did you get this from? A forensic accountant. That word landed hard. Her face flushed. You hired someone to spy on me? I hired someone to understand what you asked me to pay, I replied. There's a difference. She pushed the folder back toward me. I don't need this. I already told you what the debt is. I opened it again and turned it so she could see the highlighted sections. Only about $27,000 is student loans. Silence. The rest, I continued, are personal loans. High interest. Some taken out years after you left school. Her jaw tightened. So you lied? I said calmly. You told me it was all student debt. She stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. I simplified it. You falsified it. That's dramatic, she snapped. Debt is debt. No, I said. Context matters, especially when you're asking someone else to take it on. She crossed her arms. Those loans were for my career. Luxury retailers? I asked. Cosmetic clinics? Travel companies? Her eyes flicked away for half a second. Long enough. You don't understand how expensive it is to stay competitive, she shot back. You think success just happens? So this was about maintaining an image, I said. Not education. She scoffed. You're acting like I committed a crime. I'm acting like you manipulated me, I replied. That's when she changed tactics. Tears. Instant. Controlled. I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this. I trusted you. You trusted my wallet, I said. Not me. She wiped her eyes angrily. If you loved me, this wouldn't matter. I closed the folder. If you loved me, I said, you wouldn't have lied to see how much I'd pay to prove it. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. In a way, she was. Because that was the moment I stopped imagining a future with her and started seeing an exit. She didn't apologize. That's the part that still sticks with me. Instead, she pivoted. So what? She said, pacing the kitchen. You found out I wasn't perfectly transparent. Congratulations. Are you going to punish me forever for it? I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm reacting to what you did. She laughed bitterly. You're acting like I tricked you into buying a yacht. You tried to guilt me into paying off debt you deliberately misrepresented, I replied. That's not nothing. Her tone sharpened. I did what I had to do. You think men don't lie to get what they want? That's your defense? I asked. She stopped pacing and looked at me straight on. My defense is that I needed help. And you had the means. You just didn't want to. There it was. No shame. Just entitlement dressed up as honesty. You make it sound like I owe you, I said. She scoffed. You benefited from dating me. Don't pretend you didn't. I almost asked her to explain that sentence, but I didn't need to. I already knew what she meant. Access. Image. Status. The girlfriend who looked impressive on paper and expensive in photos. I gave you 2 years, I said quietly. Time. Support. Stability. And when you wanted $92,000, you framed it as a love test. She shrugged. That's how relationships work at this level. That was the moment the relationship officially died. Not with yelling. Not with tears. With that sentence. At this level. I stood up and started clearing my laptop from the counter. What are you doing? She asked, suddenly alert. I'm done, I said. I'm not paying your loans. Any of them. And I'm not continuing this. Her eyes widened. You're seriously ending things over money? No, I said. I'm ending things over deception. She crossed her arms, chin lifted. You'll regret this. You're walking away from someone who expected you to rise to the occasion. I picked up my keys. You confused love with leverage, I said. And I don't negotiate under false pretenses. She didn't follow me to the door. She just stood there, stunned, finally realizing that her most reliable argument, if you loved me, had stopped working. And once that stopped working, she had nothing left. I stayed at a hotel that night. Didn't tell her where. Didn't block her either. I wanted to see what came next. By morning, my phone was full. At first it was rage. You went behind my back. You humiliated me. You think you're better than me because you count numbers for a living? Then it shifted. Long messages. Voice notes. The kind she used when she wanted to sound vulnerable, but still in control. I was going to tell you eventually. You just moved faster than I expected. You don't know how hard it is to be a woman trying to stay relevant. That last one came up a lot. Relevant. Like this was all some survival tactic I should admire. When I came back to the apartment the next day to get clothes, she was waiting. Makeup done. Outfit sharp. Like she was heading into a negotiation, not a breakup. I talked to my friends, she said immediately. They think you're overreacting. I nodded. I'm sure. They said debt is complicated. That men always get weird when women ask for financial security. This wasn't about security, I said. It was about lying. She scoffed. You're acting like I stole from you. You tried to, I replied. Just with guilt instead of force. Her eyes narrowed. So what now? You walk away and feel morally superior? No, I said. I walk away because I don't trust you. That word finally cracked her composure. You're really going to let an accountant ruin this? She snapped. No, I said. You did that. He just translated. She went quiet then. Studied me like she was recalculating something. Value. Risk. Replacement. You're making a mistake, she said finally. Most men would have just paid it. Most men, I said, would have been broke and resentful in 5 years. I packed my clothes. She didn't help. Didn't yell either. She just watched, arms crossed, as if waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. and that scared her more than any argument ever had. The fallout didn't stay private. 2 days after I moved my things out, mutual friends started reaching out, carefully worded messages, vague check-ins. The kind people send when they've already heard a version of the story and want to confirm whether you're the villain they've been told you are. One message stood out. "So, did you really hire someone to investigate her?" I replied honestly. "I hired someone to understand a financial request she made." No response after that. Lauren, meanwhile, went scorched earth. She posted vague Instagram stories about financial abuse, men who weaponize money, and learning the hard way that love shouldn't come with spreadsheets. The comments were full of heart emojis and supportive nonsense from people who had no idea what they were cheering for. She tagged none of it directly at me. She didn't have to. She knew I'd see it. That night, she emailed me again. Not angry. Calculated. "If you walk away now, you're proving you never cared. You're punishing me for trying to build a future." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "I'm walking away because you tried to build your future on my bank account without my consent." She responded almost immediately. "You make it sound so ugly." "It was ugly," I wrote back. "You just dressed it well." She didn't reply after that. A week later, Evan sent me one last note. He'd continued looking, mostly out of curiosity. "There's more," he wrote, "but nothing you need. Pattern's clear. She's been refinancing lifestyle debt under new labels for years. Which meant if it hadn't been me, it would have been someone else. A fiancé, a husband, a slow bleed disguised as partnership." I closed my laptop and felt something settle. I hadn't dodged a bill. I'd dodged a future where love was always measured in dollars, and never enough. The last thing she tried was rewriting history. Not to me, to everyone else. I heard about it from a coworker whose wife followed Lauren on Instagram. Apparently, I was now the guy who dangled commitment and then pulled it away when things got real. The accountant became a violation of trust. The lie about the loans quietly disappeared from the narrative altogether. In her version, I was afraid of responsibility. I didn't bother correcting it. People who want the truth usually notice inconsistencies on their own. People who want drama don't care about facts anyway. What did surprise me was her final message. Not angry, not manipulative, just revealing. She texted, "I never thought you'd actually check." That was it. No apology. No denial. Just that. I read it 3 times. She hadn't assumed I'd forgive her. She hadn't even assumed I'd understand. She'd assumed I wouldn't look. That love, to her, meant not asking questions. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. There was nothing left to explain. I blocked her number and archived the email thread. Not out of spite. Out of closure. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, quiet, orderly, drama-free, and realized something important. If I had paid the loans, she wouldn't have respected me more. She would have trusted me less. Less likely to notice. Less likely to push back. Easier to leverage next time. People who test love with money don't stop testing. They just raise the price. And I was done bidding. It's been a few months now, and things are quiet in a way I didn't realize I needed. No sudden financial emergencies. No moral tests disguised as romance. No accusations that love equals payment. I ran into one of her friends recently. She hesitated before speaking, like she was stepping onto thin ice. "You know," she said, "Lauren says you taught her a lesson." I nodded. "Good." She said she didn't realize how serious it was. That part almost made me laugh. She realized. She just didn't expect consequences. Here's what I've learned, and why I'm posting this here instead of keeping it bottled up. When someone says, "If you loved me, you would," and what follows involves your money, your credit, or your financial future, stop. Don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Don't rush to prove anything. Just look closer. Because love doesn't require deception. Partnership doesn't require pressure. And commitment doesn't start with a lie wrapped in guilt. I didn't lose a girlfriend over money. I lost someone who was willing to mislabel debt, manipulate trust, and weaponize love to avoid accountability. What I gained was clarity, and a future that won't come with hidden balances. And that, honestly, was worth far more than $92,000. Bye-bye.